Hello friends. Today I'm going to talk about driving. You'll have to address the driving issue eventually. It is a hot topic, and I tell you, in my support group there were few topics that came up more frequently than this one. And whenever I give a presentation, someone in the audience always asks about driving. And in any Alzheimer's chat room or discussion boards, the topic will always circle around to driving eventually. Even in my own book, my teaching memoir, the chapter devoted to driving, I devote more words in its discussion and practices than any other chapter in my book. So I can just touch on it today in this video. And I leave you to read the chapter, the 9th chapter in my book for more information. Hello, I'm Dr. Renee Harmon. I am the author of Surfing the Waves of Alzheimer's. It's a teaching memoir that tells stories about my husband Harvey and his time with younger onset Alzheimer's disease. I call it a teaching memoir because not only does it tell our story, but it's organized around caregiving principles that helped keep me upright and balanced during that time. I also wanted to point out my amaryllis. If you were paying attention, I had an amaryllis in the shot my previous 2 or 3 videos. Then it just had one stalk and a bud. Well, that bud has blossomed, and now I have a second stalk that's going to blossom soon. Anyway, that's exciting. Anyway, driving. There are 2 main reasons a person with Alzheimer's disease may not be able to drive. It's poor driving skills and navigational difficulties, and of course they could have both. So the poor driving skills come about because of diminishing visual spatial skills. They just can't get that curb, see that other car, or judge where they are in space very well, and decreased reaction time. They just cannot get their foot on the brake fast enough. You may notice more dings and scrapes on your loved one's vehicle. In my opinion, the best way to assess your loved one's driving skills is to ride with them. And if you are too scared to sit in the passenger seat, then they shouldn't be driving. And you know that. It's just really hard. Also remember that you may be liable if your loved one is involved in an accident and it's learned that you knew their driving skills were not their best. You could actually be liable. Navigational difficulties come about because a person with dementia has a hard time developing an internal map to know where they are, and they can become lost easily. And you've all heard horror stories about someone living with Alzheimer's who gets lost and is found hundreds of miles away from home. That can be a disaster. So in our case, Harvey never lost any of his driving skills. He was actually a very good driver. The navigational problems were the main issue. I found when I was the passenger, I was actually always the passenger until he quit driving. But I would have to give more and more direction about where to turn, what lane to be in, to take which exit, that kind of thing. And it got worse and worse, and I was like on alert all the time while I was riding somewhere with him. Eventually I felt like I was really worried that he might get lost during the day when I was at work. Well, he couldn't remember to carry a cell phone, and he got incensed when I suggested installing OnStar in his car. So I surreptitiously placed a tracking device in his car, and I linked it to my phone so that I knew every time he left the house and I could follow him. Well, I only had to rescue him once, but that event led me to go ahead and get a full driving assessment done. I didn't want to be the one to tell him that he couldn't drive. I felt he would hear it better from a professional, someone other than me. So I had him do a driving assessment at our local university under their occupational therapy department. That's where most driving assessments are done. And he failed like I knew he would. I sold his car because I thought it would be too much of a temptation for him, and we didn't need it anyway. And he was quietly angry for a little while, and then it just became that was the way it was. It was about the same time I got a in-home caregiver with him too, who could drive him places, so he wasn't just stuck at home alone. So what can you do besides what I've just touched on? I've linked in the comments a handout from Alzheimer's Association, and in it is a contract that I would have found very helpful very early in Harvey's diagnosis. It's a contract between the caregiver and the person living with dementia, saying that the person with dementia will agree to stop driving when a named person tells them it's time. Anyway, the copy of that contract is in the handout, as well as some other tips. You might want to elicit the help of your family physician. I never had any problems telling someone that they shouldn't drive when I knew they shouldn't, telling them they couldn't drive anymore. You could ask your car insurance agent to give that news. If you have a friend who is in law enforcement, that might carry some weight. But no, and you know, it's a very, very difficult topic. There are a few Alzheimer's patients who willingly give it up because they are scared themselves, but for most, it's a loss of independence and freedom, and it's just very difficult. So I wish you the best of luck in this endeavor, and be well and keep your balance.